My name is Mark Martinez. I'm the Global Software Sales Engineer. Part of my duties is to help promote the various software development tools that we market to our customers. My contact information is up on the screen. Feel free to contact me anytime if you have any questions regarding CircuitStudio and how to obtain it, or if you need support. You'll also see the Global CAD Tool Technical Support Mailbox, PCB software at Element 14. If you have any questions concerning CircuitStudio, how to do different things in CircuitStudio, we have a full staff of technical support engineers that have been trained by Altium globally. So please feel free to send any questions that you might have to that mailbox. I can also be reached via that mailbox as well.
Today we're going to look at the board outline and also a little bit about the grids. Now the board shape or the board outline is the closed polygon that defines the extents or the boundary of the board. It provides you with a visual guideline of the space available where you can place your components and route them. And it's also when you use power planes. It defines the shape of your power plane, and it's also used for the pullback around the edges. So let me go ahead and just create a new PCB document here that we could play with. And when you start, you'll just get a blank square board shape here. You'll see it's kind of pushed down in the lower left region of this workspace. All of the commands to edit and create the board shape are found in the Home menu, right here in this board shape drop-down. And the first one we're going to look at is this Move Board Shape. If I click on that, I can move the board shape anywhere in the workspace that I like. I'll go ahead and move it up and to the right so I have some more area to work in. And I can also rotate it by hitting the space bar while I'm moving it. And the rotation step is defined here in File, System Preferences. In the PCB editor section, you can define a rotation step here. I'll just lower it a little bit. I could rotate it by 45. So that's how you move the board in the workspace. The next command we're going to take a look at is redefining the board shape. And using this command, I can create a new board shape by basically drawing out a polygon. So I just click to place my vertices. At the bottom, you'll see in my status bar, it says any angle. If I hit Shift and Space, I can toggle my different modes. I have a 45-90 with arc, 90 degree. I can hit the 1 key to toggle my look ahead mode. If you ever need to see any shortcuts, you can hit the tilde key or the F1 to bring up your shortcuts menu there. And the spacebar toggles which side the corner is going to be on. I'll just use this any angle mode to quickly maybe draw a triangular board shape here. But real simple and easy to use that redefine board shape to draw pretty much any board shape that you like. And another cool thing that we have to define your board shape is define from selected objects. You could place any collection of arcs or tracks and then select them and define your board shape right from that collection of arcs or tracks. There's a quick circular board shape. That's also very nice if you want to import like a DXF or a DWG. I think I'm going to need a project for that. And I'll just put my PCB in the project here. And then I can choose to import the AutoCAD type, DXF or DWG. I created this outline a little bit earlier. I'm just going to import it right here onto my Mechanical 4 layer. And here's the shape that I imported. I can select that and just use my define from selected objects to quickly define the board shape from a DXF. And then I can clear my filter and delete that outline. Another really cool feature is the ability to define a board shape from a 3D body, and that's available when you're in the 3D mode. Let me place one here first. And in a later session, we're going to go over actually importing these enclosures onto your PCB so that you can make sure that your PCB matches the enclosure exactly. So I've just imported a simple enclosure here, and I'm going to define my board shape from that just by clicking on board shape and then define from 3D body. Now I'm going to need to click twice. The first time I click is to select the 3D body, and the second time is to select the face of that 3D body. Right now the face that I want isn't aligned with the board, so I'm going to click twice and it's going to align it for me. And then I'll repeat that command. I click once to select the body, and then I can browse around and choose any face that I like. And I'll pick this one right here. And it'll align the surface of the board for us there. So there we go. I was able to create the board shape right from that 3D body. Looks nice. That's just a quick couple ways to create your board shape. You can either create it from scratch using the redefined board shape, or you can import a DXF or draw your own shape and define it from those objects, and also the 3D body. And the last command in here that we're going to look at is this edit board shape. This is exactly what you think. You'll be able to edit the board shape by dragging any of these vertices and edges. You just grab where you want to move and move it along. You can hold Control and click to add more vertices here. And you can also click and hold on them and hit Delete to remove them. When you move the corners, you have some different options. You'll see in the status bar it says Moving Vertex. I can change that to a mitering or mitering to arc to create a nice rounded edge there. And we'll spend a little bit of time looking at the grids also. Let me create a new schematic here so we can look at the type of grids that we have in the schematic editor. And these will be the same in the schematic library editor also. There's really three types of grids that we have in this editor. We have a visual grid, we have a snap grid, and also an electrical grid. The visible grid is just for navigation. It's what you're looking at. You can set the options for it here in File, System Preferences, Schematic, and then Grids. I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit darker so you can see what we're looking at. And you can set it to dots here if you like. And we have these really cool presets too. These are toggles when you hit the G key or the Shift key, Shift G. You have your snap grid, your electrical grid, and your visible grid. And we also have some other presets that you could select here, coarse and fine. And of course you can add your own presets too. There we go, my grid's a little bit darker. We can see what we're looking at now. All of your grid settings are stored in the document properties. So different documents can have different grid settings. I'm just going to right click and go to Options and Document Options. And here you'll see the snap grid setting, the visible, and also the electrical grid. So like I said before, the visible is the grid that you're looking at here. And then the snap grid is the grid that you move along when you place components. I'll just put down a couple components here. And you'll see in the lower left right now my grid is set to 1. And if I hit my G key, you'll see it toggling to 5 and then 10. You'll see it snapping along the 10 and then the 1, more precision there. So I like to keep my grid at 10. If you go to 1 like this and you accidentally place your component off grid, you'll see that my pins are no longer on the grid and it can cause issues for me trying to connect it. that's exactly what the electrical grid's for. What the electrical grid does is it allows you to snap to these pins even if they're placed off-grid. So as I get close to it, you'll notice that it'll snap right to that pin, and I'll get that red X. And that red X is what you want anytime that you make a wired connection. That means that there's going to be a connectivity at that point. So even if I have a component that's been created in the library slightly off-grid, maybe using a different scale or even different units, I can still connect to those using my electrical grid. And all those can be changed right here in the document options. And if you need to change your unit section, it's right here in the unit section. And the visible grid will always be displayed whenever you're zoomed in far enough where the grid can be spread out enough. You'll see as I zoom out, the grid will disappear. And if I toggle it to a larger value, you'll be able to see it reappear. And the grids in the PCB editor are very similar. We'll take a look at those now. Just get rid of that 3D body. You'll see as I zoom in, the grids will appear as soon as there's sufficient space to spread them apart. Now you'll notice that this grid isn't quite following my outline here. And that's because I haven't placed an origin yet. And to place an origin, you do that from your home menu, just right here, origin and set. And there we go, that looks nice, it's lined up right there on the grid. All my grid options are right here in the home menu too. I have the different snap grid settings that I can jump right through. And I can type a value in here, and I can also go into the properties and enter in a value here. I can do separate values for the X and the Y if I unlock them. And I can also click these different options to actually choose a grid width in the editor. I can choose if I want to hide my grids by selecting Do Not Display, or I can set them to dots or lines. And I can set the colors for them here too. This multiplier just multiplies the fine and creates this coarse grid by whatever step that you select here. And then these colors, there's a reset to default, and that's found in your view configurations. If you hit the L key or you go to this view configurations menu, then you can set up this default small and large. The large will be your coarse. And there's some more options for the snap grids. Also, if you right click and go to options and then board options. And here we have all the different snap settings. The first one is snap to object hotspots. Every single object, like a pad or a track, will have important electrical hotspots. It's kind of like the electrical grid in the schematic editor to allow connections between your pads and your tracks. The tracks will have hotspots on the end of them, and the pads will have them right in the middle. A lot of times I see people use a coarser grid when they're aligning components, and then they switch to a finer grid to actually do the routing. Sometimes they'll even set the snap grid to the sum of the width of their signal tracks and their clearance. Like if they have a 5 mil track and a 5 mil clearance, they'll set a value of 10 to automatically follow those clearances on the grid. Some other options that you have in here, you can snap to all layers on the object hotspots. Arc centers are nice if you want to get right in the middle of a circle. And then over here, of course, snap to grids. We have these linear guides, which are really cool. To add them, you just click on this guides button, and then you can add a horizontal, a vertical, a 45, and even a singular point. And you can enter in a value here, or you can just click right in the workspace. And make these a different color so they'll appear for us. And then you can choose to snap to your point guides and your linear guides and this object axis. And what that does is it allows you to align objects even if they're far away. Let me place a couple to show you exactly how that works. So see, as I move this object around, the line is appearing in between the different pads there, and that's allowing me to align it to those object axes or those hot spots to get them all lined up and snapped in there. Let me just turn off this snap to grid so it's a little more apparent. Here you see that hot spot also, I can snap right to that. And also this, the guides that I placed over here, I'll snap right to that corner too.